Last weekend, the latest Pixar film, Inside Out 2, debuted in theaters. That means we have a brand new Pixar franchise. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 6 Pixar franchises from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of all 6 Pixar franchises. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. And since Pixar is one of these movie studios that tends to evoke big emotions from its audience, and they've been putting out family films for 30 years now, which means most everyone watching this grew up watching Pixar films. We all resonate with different movies on a very deep level, so we're going to have different opinions. That's awesome, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Let's just be respectful about it, and let's get started. In last place, the Cars and Planes franchise. If you're not aware of the history here, the Planes movies were intended as a spin-off of the Cars franchise in a very loose sense, but they weren't actually made by Pixar. They were made by Disney Toon Studios, the direct-to-video division of Disney. Then they decided to put them in theaters because they thought they would be profitable enough. But they're not technically Pixar films, but they are associated with the Cars films. Anyway, as for me, I think there are good movies in this franchise, but I don't think there's any top tier movies in Cars or Planes. I'd say the best of the bunch is the first Cars movie, which delivered a bunch of iconic, memorable characters, some quotable lines. There's things about it that are very memorable, but I also think it slows down a little bit too much in the middle. I think it's the longest Pixar film, and you do feel that watching the movie.
I don't care who you are, that's funny right there.
And then from there, I think Cars 2 is one of the weakest Pixar films that it just feels like a direct-to-video concept that was given a big, slick budget. So it looks really nice, but it's kind of this schlocky concept where you take the side character and make him the lead, which is a very spin-off direct-to-video type of thing to do. And we go from sports movie to spy movie, and it just felt conceptually cheap. Not as interesting, heartfelt, creative as most of what Pixar usually has to offer. Cars 3 is a bit of a return to form. I think it's another good Pixar film, but I don't think it's a great Pixar film. And in particular, I think some of the execution in the last 40%, 30% kind of loses me a little bit. I actually like both of the Planes movies. I think they're fun spin-offs that, for what they are, they work. They accomplish their goal, but once again, they're definitely not great. In which case, you have a franchise that has a lot of watchable movies, but none that are just have that Pixar magic for you. Coming in at number 5, the Monsters franchise. Now, the original Monsters, Inc., of course, is a Pixar classic that takes a familiar concept, a child's fear of the monsters under their bed or in the closet, turns it on its head, and just makes this charming film with one of the best bromances in all of Pixar, right up there with Buzz and Woody and Mike and Sully. Classic odd couple, different personalities, different body types, different talents, but so fun together on screen, and you send them on this adventure with Boo. And it just found a way to take the familiar and just do something so wildly different and creative with it, with characters that you really enjoy. And then you get Monsters University that I think is a totally fine premise for a film, just feels a little bit lightweight for Pixar. To me, if Monsters University had been like a direct-to-video film spinoff, I'd call it a great direct-to-video spinoff. I'd think about it the same way that I think about the Planes movies, except maybe a little bit better than them, in that it expands the world, but doesn't feel like it has the weight of being a Pixar film, where Pixar is kind of this premium film studio that has a lot of not just good films, but fantastic films. In Monsters University, just feels a little bit too conventional, where it's essentially Revenge of the Nerds or any other number of other college comedies about these outcasts that get in a competition with the cool kids to try and earn their place on campus and the respect of their peers. This is pretty tried and true stuff. So it just felt a little bit too straightforward. It's not bad, The characters are still likable. There's still a good bit of a message in there. But once again, it doesn't quite fully have that Pixar magic to it, to where you kind of got one that's way up here and one that's just kind of right there in the middle. And so when you have so many great movies being on average above average, still doesn't make it top tier. At number 4, the Finding Nemo and Dory franchise. And this is a bit of a tricky one for me because Finding Nemo is my favorite Pixar film, where it was the right movie at the right time for me. I didn't see it when it first came out. I saw it 10 years later when I had a 1-year-old child. It's a movie that's all about parenting and letting go, and that's the exact phase of life that I was in when I first saw the film, so it means a great deal to me. It's also incredibly quotable, iconic, memorable characters, all the things that make for a classic, iconic Pixar film, heartfelt, great message, all of it combined together, broad appeal. There's something for little kids, there's also something for new parents, as well as aging parents, all of it at the exact same time. So, it's one of my favorite Pixar film. But at the same time, it's not a story that naturally lends itself to a sequel. It's not like normally members in a tight family friend group just keep getting lost and have to find a parent. That's not the way this normally works. And so inherently, I think Finding Dory feels like a rehash, where it's not entirely obvious why this would happen again, and so we have to kind of contrive a scenario. With all that said, because Andrew Stanton is a master storyteller that just has a high get-it factor. He knows how to craft movies that have a big emotional payoff. He understands people and how to arrange the pieces of a story and what will evoke big emotions.
Storytelling is joke telling. It's knowing your punchline, your ending, knowing that everything you're saying from the first sentence to the last is leading to a singular goal, confirming some truth that deepens our understandings of who we are as human beings.
He knows how to write good jokes and craft characters that you like. And so while it is, in a lot of ways, a rehash, it's kind of like a cover song, it's a really good one. It's a really enjoyable one. It still has laughs, characters, emotion to it. Not as fresh, but good. So for that reason, I have it above the Monsters franchise, but still, I don't know that this needed to be a franchise. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of the Pixar franchises. Remember, my list isn't the right list. It's just my list. And I would love to see yours. And hopefully, even if you really disagree with me, you'll help to see how different people see these movies. We're not supposed to agree. We're supposed to disagree. And in seeing our differences and discussing it, learn about each other. That's the fun part, not arguing about why the other person's wrong, which is kind of an odd thing to do. Also, if you like this type of content, I did rank all of the Pixar movies last weekend, and then also, or I guess a few days ago, also I've ranked the DreamWorks movies, all the Disney movies, Illumination, all of that fun stuff. You can find those in that playlist right up there. In third place, Inside Out, our brand new Pixar franchise. And as for me, I felt that Inside Out did lend itself to a sequel, where the first film did such a great job of finding a way to creatively visualize a child's development and how emotions form and their brain starts to move from concrete to abstract thinking, and the new emotions that come with it, the new ways of thinking that come with it. And to that point, children continue to grow up. Children continue to develop, in which case there's new phases of life and puberty and all sorts of other things you can continue to explore using this same concept and premise of finding a way to visualize these kind of interesting concepts about cognitive development. Stuff that, I was an education major, so I read books on Piaget and things like that. And they captured it in a way that even 3-year-old children can watch it and enjoy it, understand it just a little bit. Older kids understand it a little bit more. And for that reason, I think there's something very special about these movies, because they're not just entertaining, they're useful because they help us understand ourselves and others better. And the second film built on all of that, We move into puberty. We have abstract thought, and with abstract thought, the ability to think beyond the moment and imagine all these future scenarios in a brain that starts doing that without proper constraints yet, you develop anxiety for the first time. And there's just something about that's so useful to see anxiety as a villain, but also as a useful tool. It's there for a reason. And you get that. Why is anxiety so harmful to some of us when it's out of control? And how is it useful when we get a handle on it? And likewise, I loved that it took Riley and it made her a more prominent character, the more distinct story arc in the real world that's so relatable. Whether, she's playing hockey, but it could be anything. And there's just these universal scenarios that kind of play out as we navigate moving from childhood to adolescence, being a kid to tween to teenager, high schooler, and the way that friendships shift while our emotions are changing. What causes all of that? Like diving deeper into it. And they're conversation pieces. I took my daughter to go see Inside Out 2 with me, and the whole ride home we were talking through everything kind of going on it, and even like applied how this movie visualized what was going on with Riley and talked about Mean Girls and how it's kind of similar scenarios, and this is kind of unpacking why do people do what they do. I love that about these movies. So we've got two of them, and I think both of them are great. Our runner-up, Toy Story. Now, if we were just talking about the mainline Toy Story films, they would be a shoo-in for number one. Like on Rotten Tomatoes, the average Rotten Tomatoes score for these four movies is like a 98 or a 99. Two of them have 100%. The lowest one has a 97%. So it's just nuts how widely loved these films are. That they were able to keep the quality high. I know some people are not crazy about Part 4, but I am. And they were able to create these characters that we love. Explore these deeply emotionally resonant themes about growing up, letting go, change, responsibility, having toys explore their purpose in this world and have insecurities. They're lovable because they are flawed. All of that fun stuff. And they had 4 different stories. Let's even call it 3 if you don't like number 4. 3 stories that were distinct, unique, did something different, but all brought out these big emotions. Some of us, and the great conclusion there, some of us would say Part 4 is a great epilogue that explores parenting. I view it from that lens of, as a parent, your role is to let go and find a point in time where your kids don't need you anymore at over supervising them. You view Woody from that perspective as the parent of this group, and his role changed when they moved on from Andy, and it was about letting go. That's the way I perceive it. I thought it was great. So you have 2 great endings, 4 great movies. Would be number 1, but then we got Lightyear, which I think has some superficially entertaining moments to it. There's things about it that I do think work that are kind of interesting. The basic premise of making the movie that Andy saw that made him want to buy a Buzz Lightyear, I think is really clever and interesting. The movie that they delivered, I think, does not in any way reflect that. They utterly failed at the basic premise because you don't watch this dark, gloomy movie about an aging Buzz who's no longer a space ranger and is more of an astronaut trying to fix a ship and who turns into his own worst enemy and is his literal enemy. That is not those aren't themes, ideas that a 10-year-old connects with and want to go buy a Buzz Lightyear toy. Kids left that movie and they wanted a socks toy, not Buzz Lightyear.
Good night, Buzz.
I have kids on all 3 of my kids' target age range when that movie came out. None of them wanted Buzz Lightyear, they wanted socks. And we bought our kids a socks toy. So the premise itself had a test for as it worked. Did kids want Buzz Lightyear? Mine did not. Anecdotal, but it failed the test. But I don't think it's an awful movie. It's just it's a total misfire of a concept. And I don't know why we're deconstructing Buzz Lightyear and doing a version of him that's old, evil, and is literally turned into Zurg. So because you have one that's so far off, it has to pull your franchise down, so it can't be. But coming in at number 1, we have The Incredibles, where Brad Bird was able to do multiple awesome things with these movies. The Incredibles themselves are original superheroes. In an era of oversaturation with superheroes that are all adaptations, he created new superheroes. With the original Incredibles, it was groundbreaking with so many of the things they did in that film, how dynamic it was, that it was so many human characters with CGI at a time where that was not what computers were good at. There were so many techniques they had to develop, even regarding hair and how to process it and the transitions with Jack. It was groundbreaking as an animated film. And then even just stylistically speaking, it has its own weird, quirky vibe to it where superhero story, but has like this retro 60s spy vibe to it and the aesthetic as well as the score. And then it's a movie about a midlife crisis where this man that used to be incredible wants to know what his purpose is and is he still incredible as he gets older and settles into midlife and family life. Thus has a midlife crisis, but it's still a movie that little kids can enjoy just fine. Superficially, anyone can be entertained by this film, and at certain ages, it has a lot of meaning for you. But they even find a way to make that midlife crisis story applicable to all ages through syndrome and its ideas of,
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
we got the second movie. Some people weren't as crazy about it, but I was crazy about it. I thought that they found a way to continue to deliver an exciting superhero story in this world. And because I've always kind of had some issues with Syndrome and some of his motivation and the trope used for his motivate, like never been crazy about it, I thought that there were some things about Screenslaver and the plot that worked better for me in this movie. It was 14 years later, so the technology was much better, so the action is even more dynamic, thrilling, exciting. There's more visual flair. So it took everything that was great about the first one and is able to do a flashier version of it. There's some plot things and villain things that I thought worked better. It's not as fresh as the first one because it's not the first one, but it's another great entry. So when you put it all together, this is the franchise that's fresh, it's exciting, it's awesome, it's groundbreaking, and it doesn't have Lightyear to knock it out of the top spot, so it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, remember I've got more like it. You can check those out wherever that button is with my other Pixar videos. I did a Pixar Hot Takes video, and then I've done a bunch of rankings of other franchises. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV.